in which I can get back to doing some scenic work around the station of Weathertop and show you the beginnings of the work that I've been doing there, including some ballasting. I also talk you through in more detail the plans for the fire station, which I will start building, I hope, sometime next week, and show you the unintended consequences of capillary action, and you'll see that towards the end. So can I just take this opportunity to thank all my new subscribers. I'm really grateful to all of those that you have subscribed and the new ones that have just joined recently. So now let's go back a few days to a week actually, when I started to think about doing some ballasting and scenic work around Weathertop Station. Okay, well, this is just a reasonably short section, I hope, on the work that I'm going to be doing. I hope most of it today, but we'll see. The first thing is that having now got the town plan laid out, I can now know where things go, and therefore I can get back to my idea of doing the scenic work from the back to the front. So the next thing to be worked on is the station, which is why the scene of devastation is before you, because everything's been taken off. I've taken off the raised area at the end and cleared everything, so it's all sort of sat over here. If you're wondering what the toothbrush is doing, it makes an excellent ballast for ballasting, for pressing the track down. Tamper, that's the word I'm seeking. I picked it up from Cheeky Tech, to whom goes the idea for using that, but it really does work well. And what I want to do first is fit some lights to the 3 bays. If you look at the station, there's a bay there where they come up onto the platform, obviously a bay where the fencing is there, which is the underpass, and then the final bay between the large 2 buildings. And I got from, I think, Layouts for You, but I'll confirm that in the note below, some little lamps which are going to hang from the centre columns of the bay there, which I think will work really rather nicely. There's 3 in a packet, which is very handy. They come with resistors because they're 3-volt lamps, so those resistors reduce the current from a 12-volt supply, would reduce it down to 3 volts if that's what you're using, and my supply is 12 volts. Some little time ago, I'm trying to think when it was, quite a while ago now, about five months ago, I was mentioning about wanting to be able to dim lights which were very bright, and Mark Ireland at that time put me on to these things which have the facility to dim, and that's this thing here is the dimmer. But they also have the facility to take a 12-volt supply and turn it into 3-volt outputs using this jumper, which is set for 3 volts. If you want to use it as a 12-volt supply, then you just take it off those 2 and put it on. There's another little pin there to those 2. And then you can obviously use the dimmer. So I'm going to use this to be able to run those 3 volts lamps without putting in any resistors, because I've got other 3-volt lamps, and I think I may well be able to wire them all into this unit. And as you can see, I think it's 2 for 10, so you can get 10 lamps running off of this unit. Let's get it back into focus for you. 10 lamps running off of this unit. So we'll give that a go and see how we do. I'm also started ballasting. You may not quite be able to see that. I'll take a picture and insert it at this point. The ballasting has been done again using Ballast Magic at a 5-to-1 ratio from the inside of the tunnel round about 9 inches. So that obviously as the trains, as you look from here, you can, the ballasting doesn't just stop at the tunnel mouth, it carries on for a bit. And I think I may try and put some walled card around the incline, certainly for about a foot or 2. Again, so that as you're looking into the tunnel mouth, you're not looking at what is at the moment. If I do zoom in here, you'll see. If you're looking from here, you can see what it's doing. So that's where we are at the moment. I'll come back once I've done a bit of this work and got some of the ballasting in with a bit of luck to enable us to complete this work. Speak to you again when I've done all that. In my last video I spoke about the fire station, which is the next scratch build project for me, and I showed you a design which I'd begun to develop, which has developed further, and you can see it in front of you. The previous design, I'd thought about possibly having a pediment with a sloping roof, and actually the building would have only come out to here, so the pediment would have gone up there. But I've decided against that. The more I researched Art Deco fire stations, the more I was confirmed in my fear that really wouldn't look right. And I do want it to be Art Deco in feel and style. So the design that you see in front of you has the rear elevation, the front elevation, the plan and the side elevation. And it's still for 3 fire engines. That's this section here. The front piece steps out in 2 ways. The top section, which is where this is where the firemen will be during the day, and then the actual front of the building where the doors are steps out a little bit further, and I'm hoping that will help break up what would otherwise be pretty much a rectangular building. You can see that the entrance is going to be here in a porch with a door set back up a couple of stairs, with rooms on this side which connect through to here. So the bottom of the windows are common right across here, so that we've got a common floor level. These I think would be side rooms where maybe there's kitchens in there or something. I'm not necessarily going to model that, but I think it's important to have that in your head for when you're building this. Why are these rooms here? What are they doing? The portals are going to have doors which I've got from York Model Rail, and if I bring this into focus, I think these are actually engine shed doors, but they'll do for my purpose, I think. Not sure what colour I'm going to paint these yet, because although in modern fire stations they're red, some of the Art Deco ones had them a kind of tiki effect, wood. Certainly Acton did before it was repainted. So I'll think about how what I go for there. The doors will swing in from the front, and this is one of the fire appliances that will be stationed at Weathertop. It's a Dennis F12, which I think in the last video I said was late 1940s. I think it's actually nearer mid-50s, but that's still within the time period that I'm modelling, so that's fine. And one of the reasons I was delayed finishing this design was to wait till I got this, so I can be sure that those doors, when swung in, will not foul the fire engine. The doors at the back, which is the same as this, only without the arched top, will swing outwards and close behind the fire engine. And the total area on which the building will sit will give enough room for this fire engine to be able to make a turning circle into bays 2 and 3. Bay 1 it will have to reverse and then come in. And my intention, this is the exact size that the building will sit on. So this is the building here. Engines can come in here and make the turns into 2 and 3 and then reverse and come into here. A side gate to allow people access to the backyard without using any of the entrances for the fire engines, and a training tower at the back for them to practice rescuing damsels in distress. I'm going to have a go at trying to make these brick arches, probably out of thin plasticard, cut them to shape, scribe them and paint them up a bit and see if I can get that to work. These are more of the round windows such as I used on the War Memorial, and I'm hopeful that will look quite good once it's done. It's going to be faced eventually with this brick card, but I think the carcass is likely to be made out of quite thick ordinary card, not the plasticard, and then I'll attach that afterwards, I think. But I'll see when I come to actually start doing the building. I wanted on the inside to have a tiled effect, which is not uncommon in older fire stations, and I couldn't find texture papers from any of the major online sources that one normally goes. So I turned to Microsoft Excel and created this, which I'm rather pleased with, I have to say. I'm not going to bore you how I did that now, but if enough of you are interested in how I used Excel to create that, I'd be happy to show you what I did. It's fairly straightforward. You have to do a bit of copying and pasting to get enough rows, but it's not too difficult, and I can see me using that if I want to do custom brick papers to suit my taste rather than use the ones that are commercial. I mean, it is uniform, so it would need weathering, whereas some of the ones online, of course, are pre-weathered. There will be lights in the building, and I should be making sure that when I construct the building, you can't see right the way through it, so there are internal walls, and some of those I will make sure I cover so I can put lights in and light doesn't bleed through the walls. And on the front are going to be these lamps, which were built actually for Sharky's End, bought for Sharky's End, but the little building was so small and those big lamps are much too grand for it. So, but on the front of this building, I think they'll go rather well when they come to do that. Construction has all. I was going to try and do a 3D model to show you, but as I came to think about how would you build a 3D model, it began to make me understand that I've probably got to do this as 4 distinct sections. So do the 2 wings on their own, separately. The portal with the doors in, which is 8mm deep here, as a separate section, because that overlaps and goes in front of the bit that sticks out at the front on the plan. So that's how I'm going to have a crack at building it, and that's the next thing to do, and I'll show you that in the next video as we start creating probably a mock-up first of all. But as you've seen with the War Memorial, the mock-up turned into be the carcass of the actual thing, so a lot depends on the accuracy with which I'm able to produce that first mock-up and whether it highlights the need to amend the design. And there's lots of internal detailing and various things that I want to do, which I'll explain in future videos. So that's pretty much where I got to on building the fire station. Now let's go back to the layout and see what happened once I finished doing the work on there, and also an example of the perils of capillary action. Well, here we are several days later, and I've managed to complete the lights. The lights were fairly straightforward to do, to be fair to them. The hardest thing was getting them to stick onto the canopy, where I couldn't even get super glue to work, although the super glue I've got is a quite thick one and takes a while to grab. And these were quite fiddly things to hold in place, but Yoo-hoo did the job perfectly well. So the lamps are now in. I've adjusted them with the dimmer to a brightness that I'm comfortable with, and the platform is back in its place. I've also completed the ballasting now from the tunnel mouth on the left hand side here all the way to an inch or two beyond the platform edge on the left hand side, but I've only just done the back rail. And I did that because I wanted to make sure that I could put the platform in place and be sure that trains could pass the platform before doing any ballasting on the platform that's facing us, platform 2. Because if for any reason where the ballast lay, I couldn't get the platform back into the space it originally occupied, I can adjust the tracks this side before ballasting them. but I think actually I have managed to keep the line of the ballast where it needs to be to put the platform into its proper position. It is marked on the board at the corners of each of the platform slopes, and everything seems to be in place. I've run a train along the ballast and that's gone through perfectly well. A little bit of cleaning of the track, but not too much, so I'm really pleased with that. That's one of the great joys of ballast magic, I think, that you just put water on and there's no glue going onto the rails themselves. The only problem I encountered, which I alluded to in the previous section, was the effects of capillary action. If I put some lights on here so you can see what's going on, where the water, and you can see it there by the tunnel mouth and also just behind the light if I zoom in first of all. I did protect the paper when I was spraying the water with card, plastic card, so I know it wasn't a porous material. But where the ballast was is leaning up against the paper, because I ballasted right up to the paper. What in some places water droplets or something has gone down and through capillary action has moved up the paper. Now, in some places I'm not too unhappy because it actually gives a bit of weathering, and I could probably do something with that just to take the colour back down a little bit, perhaps with a wash or dry brushing or something. In other places which you can't see because I put the platform back in, it's much bigger. Although you can't see it because I put the platform back in, even when you look through. And it may be that by happy accident I've done my first piece of unintended weathering, because it does look like a bit of rising damp. The tide mark is a bit strong in places. As you can see, I can't zoom in anymore, but you'll see the one behind the Weathertop running inboard. There's a very clear tide mark where the water stopped. But maybe that's not unlike rising damp in a wall. I mean, it does make you wonder how long the wall would carry on standing. But anyway, so I need to have a think about that. Where it's at its worst, it will not be difficult to insert a new piece of card there. I've got plenty of this. It's actually paper. Plenty of this paper. I could easily cut a piece to fit exactly between the buttresses, and it would cover that, and you wouldn't know that there was anything underneath it. So I'm not broken-hearted about it. It's a shame. It warns me for when I come to do the ballasting further round. Not that you can see much of it here, but all the wall around there, I really don't want that leaching. So I think I want to try and keep the ballast away from the paper, and perhaps try and put a barrier in so that the water can't seep through. Perhaps some thin plasticard at the bottom there, just a very thin strip which can be covered in with some asphalt or something else. So the next thing for me to do, which will be for the next video now, is to complete the ballasting on this side of the track, and also to do the work that I want to do around here, and get the fence, which is sitting up there waiting to be, if I zoom in a bit, there you go, get that in place so that I can then fix the buildings of Longbottom Terrace and Bagshot Terrace. The paper that you can see, which as you can see now is rather taken a bit of a hammering, I'm entirely content with the quality of the paper, but I just don't like it. I don't think the colour tone works very well with the colour tones of the buildings. So I think I'm going to go back and to use the Metcalfe cobbles, of which I've got plenty, to provide the cobbled streets for around the houses, and that I'll do separately, possibly if I can get the other work done about the same time. So that's about it for this edition of Elvenhome. I hope you've enjoyed it, and the shots of trains running, which I have yet to record, but I am going to record them, so you've got trains running. If you've liked the video, please do like it, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. I'm grateful to all my new subscribers and my existing subscribers. I'm up to nearly 1,550. No, start again. 1,150. Let's not get overexcited. And that is really an amazing number. So thank you very much to all of you. And until I speak to you again, oh yes, and if you've got any comments, then please do leave comments. As I say, I really enjoy the comments and the advice And even if you think I'm doing something wrong, it's always very helpful, because this can be quite a solitary pursuit, and having you lot out there to be able to talk to is a great help. So until we speak again in a couple of weeks' time, that's everything from me. Bye-bye.